I think what I like about the system here is that they have a system, but they're more loose with the rules. I think that it's really good for us to have a system, but we need to learn to adapt to specifics, to the specific situations. And they're not so serious about it here. I think a lot of people think like the Chinese system is super serious and really intense, but people are pretty chill.
Hi, Steph. It's my pleasure to have you on Evidence Strong Show. If you could briefly introduce yourself.
Of course. My name is Stéphane Gregory. I'm a chiropractor out of Canada, but I work with the Guangxi Province in China and worked with the Chinese Weightlifting Association and many other Olympic teams. But my specialty now is weightlifting and pain-free weightlifting.
Awesome. So, are you based in the National Center? What is the setup?
Right now, because of the timing and competition, we're basically in everyone's at their provinces. There are some national teams, but national teams are basically built here when big international competitions are coming up. So there is really no weightlifting national team. So I'm at the Guangxi Province. That's my home base. I'm the director of performance of all the sports here, and I run a team. And when we go to this upcoming national games, we're all competing against within provinces. Each province is fighting against each other, kind of thing. Once that's over, then people go back and go to those national training centers. However, each province training centers basically looks like a national team training center. They're pretty much the same. If I would argue that in many teams, they prefer their provinces facilities more than the national facilities, because the national facilities is more kind of, I guess, strict. Whereas the provincials, they're more comfortable. They're used to the environment and stuff. So it's very different in the sense that every area has really solid training facilities.
Awesome. So, today we're talking Chinese weightlifting system. So, let's start from the beginning. How the kids go through the system? How do they start weightlifting specifically?
Yeah, well, so one thing you would learn in the Chinese system is that there is a system, but it is not a system. It's very adaptable to each area. What I did before the call is I kind of just asked a lot of the athletes. So bear in mind, I'm working in one province and the stories were all quite different between all the athletes.
Wow.
So how they get selected could depend on them and where they are, what their home city is. But typically before the age of 11, they had some sort of a visiting person came by, did a bunch of testing on the athletes in terms of like, they got them to jump, run, play, do different activities. And basically if they looked athletic or they performed well in some of these events, they were then said, you can join a sports school, not a specific sport, just come to a sports school, develop as an athlete. And then when they come to the sports school, they sort of have, some of them had options. They're like, what would you like to do? And others were kind of told like, you should go weightlifting or you should go martial arts. So like some of our athletes were told, you can go weightlifting or martial arts or judo. And then so they had to choose between them. And then once they get into that sports school, they train, they go to school, they do training, they live there. So they're not usually living with their parents. They're staying in a dormitory. The whole campus is like a university basically at these sports schools. And they will stay there until they're good enough to leave that level. So they will train, they'll compete, they'll do little city level, provincial level competitions, and or coaches might even come and just be scouting. So if I take, for example, Zhao Jinghong, who's the world record holder right now, and when she was picked, she said that when she was around 11, I forget the specific age, but she got into the sports school. She doesn't know why she was picked. I asked her, do you know, like, were you really fast? Was it your height or anything? She's like, I have no idea. And so she was at that sports school for about a year. And then her current coach had gone down and was recruiting and liked what he saw with her. She also doesn't know what he liked necessarily, but then he said, come join our weightlifting team in Nanning. And Nanning is the city I'm in, it's the provincial level. And so then she came over and started training here at the base at that point. Other athletes are more selected to competition. So if they won a competition, you got more recognition and like, you're good, come on over. Some might be connections. What I heard was sometimes it's like, oh, like this person knows that coach or that coach is looking for someone from a certain area. Maybe they like people from this city versus that city. So it was very varied stories of how they actually get into the sport. So that was kind of interesting. It wasn't a simple, you do this test, you do good on that. It was very varied. And I think that's actually a good thing of their system. They're very adaptable. I don't know if they do it on purpose, but they're very adaptable and they mold to the current situation, which allows them to not be restrained to metrics that they might not, probably wouldn't have been able to track back then. Now with AI and all the central databases that people do, they might be able to track it, but before then it was just gut instinct.
You are describing more a system where the child is taken into boarding school, the sports school system. How is it viewed by the families, this, or of athletes for this matter, the separation of family life from sports or development in the sport?
I think, well, clearly every person will have a different experience with it. I think a lot of the athletes generally were speaking along the lines of this is what it is. They just kind of, this is how it is. The coaches are basically their parents in the system here. So like when I say like, are your parents coming to the competitions? Most of them will be like, I don't think they've ever seen me compete. So it's not like, we're proud of you, son. Like, let's go cheer you on every time you do a competition. It's more kind of a business transaction. The parents will get paid. So if an athlete goes to a sports school, the parents get paid. Athlete gets paid after a certain age. The specific age I might not be clear on. I imagine it's around 16, but basically there's a monthly stipend to the parents. So like, and a lot of the athletes in my province, because we're a southern province, it's a lot poorer. A lot of the families are rural, living in the countryside, not a lot of facilities. So this is actually a way for the family to survive. So kids will be like, I'm doing this to help the family. I'm going to go to sport, provide, make sure you guys are okay. It's got more of that transactional feel. There's no like, it's not like you cannot see your parents. They communicate with their parents. They talk all the time. Parents will come here. If an athlete's hurt, like I've had a few times where an athlete was hurt bad enough that the parents came down and stayed with them to make sure everything was okay. So it's still a loving relationship, just very different than what I've ever seen in Western world. But each culture needs to do what they need to do, I guess. But like, if I were to then throw another, I've had some athletes come from normal schools, like where they didn't go to a sports school. They went to regular elementary school, going into high school, and they performed well in those, like the varsity programs that you'd have in a normal school. They performed well enough that some coaches were like, hey, actually, and you come join our team. So it would be completely fluid based on like if they felt they had potential and the coach recognized and they wanted them. I would say are very good weightlifters. All were identified fairly early. I'd say all of them were by the age between 10 and 13 were in a sports school. And I would say before 15, they were already at like the provincial level, or at least a little bit higher with a higher level coach. It's very fluid, that's why I was saying it's like, it's a system, but it's not systematic in any way.
Okay, so they get to provincial level. Now you have national games, huge event. It's, would you say, comparable to Olympic in status?
High. Well, here, this is the Chinese Olympics. That's what I call it. But I believe in size, it is much bigger than the Olympics, because if you imagine for, like say Worlds that just happened, we sent our junior athletes from our province, like the females were from our like, hey, you guys haven't had a chance to go international. All our A team are peaking for national games. So why don't you guys go to Worlds? Like Worlds was kind of an annoyance. So the national games is the absolute priority. It's every 4 years, just like the Olympics. So yeah, it's just monstrous, because it's for weightlifting, for example, at the international stage. I say most people know maybe 10 athletes from China. There's got to be 200 per province that are close to that level. So you're looking at like over 1,000 athletes people have never heard of that are better than most athletes. So it's a really deep talent pool that this national games can pull out. Not all 1,000 would be competing, but it's pretty crazy to think like all of these people are from one country. And just, I'm coming from Canada, where our system, it just doesn't have the depth that the system has. So very interesting.
Preparation for national games. So that's the main goal of a professional athlete in weightlifting. They want to do well at this particular event. And now, how do they go from getting to province training center to the stage at the national games? So walk me through how they would.
Well, so the national games, the national games is, if I want to think of it, it's like province versus province. And it's simply who's the best in your category or your province are going to go to national games. So they had qualifying for the last, I would say, almost 2 years. They started talking about qualifying 2 years ago. The qualifications involve some international competitions. Like they want to see, can you compete? Like, are you someone who doesn't choke? Are you able to perform? Then they had a lot of qualifying competitions within China. So making sure like you are outperforming other provinces. So a lot of what China does really well is they're very smart on athlete selection for competition. They are not someone's like, you're good in this category, so you should go. It's more like, okay, you're good at this category. If you have 6 spots to send someone, they're going to be like, well, which category should we send someone in? Which one are we most likely going to win the gold medal in? Which one? So they're like spying on each other provinces and being like, okay, how are they doing right now? Okay, what are they able to lift? What can our guy lift? Okay, let's compare. Let's see what chances we have to maximize. And then that's the kind of the selection process, which I'm not part of. I'm just making sure that they don't hurt, and that if they're injured, they're getting back to training. But I've seen parts of it, and it's fascinating how much they consider. I've seen a mind chart, like a not mind chart, but like a chart of all the things that can, hundreds of things that consider. So it's pretty intense how they select, but it's qualifying just like anything else. So it basically, comparing it to the Olympics is appropriate, because like the Olympics, you have to qualify to the Olympics. You need to meet a certain standard. You need to succeed against other people sufficiently enough to qualify to go to this major competition. So they do the same thing, but within China, and they do consider the international competitions as well.
So for the province, is it each province has one competitor per weight class, or
No, they'll have many. I think that's where you have to qualify. So if we take, for example, the 49, it's confusing with the new categories. So they're still doing 45, 49. And it's the reason it's confusing, like now, like the new categories, but then also like, so like Ojikwe, who won in the light women's, the 40, was 49 at Paris. So if you win a medal at the Olympics, you get automatically qualify for the national games. But her province probably also has a few other people in her category. And if they qualify through competition, they would also still go. So they don't cap it if it's like one category. It's going to be who met the qualifying standards at that level. You guys are all clear to go. So that's why it means like it's a really big one. And then I think there is a number cap, but I didn't actually learn about it. No one ever talked about a number cap, because we're sending a lot. All of our female team for weightlifting, we're sending 12 girls to the national games. And it was never about what category. It was just, did they qualify to go? So I think it was more, did you do well enough? Then you can go. But imagine, like, they can't just send everyone. Like if everyone's really good, that'd be like what, 18 different rounds of weightlifting for one category would be too long. So I'm not actually sure exactly the full qualification standards.
this is mind blowing.
I'm gonna to give you an idea of how big this is the national games are gonna be held in Guangxi Province, in Cal, and like one sport will take an entire city. So like weightlifting is in one city, track and field's in another city, badminton is in another city. So they're spreading it out, which is more of like just population control, but also to like, include everyone. I'm sure there's background politics behind it, but like if you want to go to the busiest place possible, go to Hong Kong in the next month. It's gonna be absolutely wild. They're flying in people just to do like performances for entertainment.
Let's move to the selection for the Olympics.
Yeah, so for the Olympic teams, they call them their national teams. Weightlifting, for example, was mostly held in Beijing, but also did some other provinces. They like to move around. They don't like to just always stay in one place. But at the province level, who's really good, who's doing really well, who's performing internationally very well, and then it'll kind of go through stages. Actually, everything here is, I didn't talk about the stages part, but everything is kind of like, let's send a bunch of people, see who's performing better. Let's take away people. So at the national teams, say 2 years before Paris, there would have been 4 squads, kind of like A squad, B squad, C, like tiers. Shouldn't say squad because each coach has a squad, but it's like kind of like A level, B level, C level, D level. So the provincial levels that did really, really good, or like best provincial levels, they might go to D level. See, can they hack it? Can they compete against the others? If they're not doing well enough, or they don't want to be there, they go back. But then as you get closer to the Olympics, like, okay, so you have your A, B, C, D. Okay, D and C will stay there as kind of backups before they've picked, like before you've have specifically this person's going to the Olympics. And then once you start selecting people or which categories you're going to be going for, then those people start disappearing, and then they go back to the provinces. And then as you get closer, whoever's performed the best and who's going to be the most likely to win at the Olympics stays on. So it was like 30 athletes on the national team, then it went down to 20, and then it went down to the squad that ended up going to Paris. And within that squad, they'll probably keep one one or two other athletes, kind of just to have training partners. So otherwise, like it got quiet. Like the hall is big. It's not a small hall. So it's like a big hall. There's 30 athletes lifting. It's really loud and it's fun. And as it goes, it's like it's kind of quiet. Like I don't know. Some of us were not really liking it. Like Lee Dayan is he's a very playful guy. And you could tell like he was just like, I don't like quiet it is sometimes. Or from me watching it, it's like it felt like he was like, it's like a little quiet here. But yeah, so then you end up with that final squad, and then who goes is going to be based off of that politics of who's more likely to win. So if I give a good example would be from our province, we have Jianghui. Been 12 years at world level, like top level. Her and Ho Jihui have basically gone up and over each other. They both won world records over each other. They kept fighting. They've always been the same level. But then it'll always come to the leaders will be like, this competition matters. And then who did better in that one goes. So even though for Paris, I'm biased, so I would have liked Jiang Weihua to go. But she won like 2 or 3 international competitions before I think it was Asia Champs. But then Ho won at the Asia Champs. I might be getting the name of the competition, but she won the one that the leaders cared about. So then she went. And then they might have looked at the training history. Maybe Ho has she's a fierce competitor. Like honestly, she's incredible. So they might just be like, we trust her, and then they pick her. So even if the athletes are like they were literally lifting the same, it's in general, like well, at times higher, but if they go like, you know what, I trust this athlete, so I'm gonna send them, or like who knows what politics goes on behind as well. But it's a very fierce battle, but they're very friendly. Like they're not like, it's like because it's their job, they're like, I'm here to work, I'm here to lift heavier and heavier. If I go, I go. Some of them care a lot. Others, no. Like when I ask, because as a foreigner, like a Canadian, like Olympics to me is the big one. And I'll talk to them. It's like, oh, like right now, I'm always like, we're getting ready for LA, right? Like we're getting ready for, and they're like, I don't care. I was like, what? How do you not care? They're like, it's too far away. I was like, I'm just doing this. I was like, okay. So sorry, you got sidetracked there, but basically this selection is forming within each other, and they start with a bigger number and they bring it down to the top ones. And then depending, because of the restrictions at the Olympics, it was 6 spots. So then it was very competitive. If they didn't have that restriction, they would have had a lot more people to go, which would have been good for me, but
You mentioned that coaches have squads. Could you expand a little bit on that? And also, is the coach assigned to the level? So if I'm national coach, I always coach A level athletes. How does that part work?
That's a good question. Yeah, because each country kind of does their coaching different. The coaches here at the provincial level are mostly athletes, ex-athletes. Typically, to become a coach, it's not like you pass the coaching and then you become a coach. You're usually an athlete who does well, and then you pass the coaching circuit to say you're good enough to coach. And it does actually relate kind of to so. At the national games, this is one of the reasons why I keep bringing it back all of this. But if the athlete wins at national games, they're guaranteed a coaching job. Like if they want to be a coaching job at a major city, depending on availability, that they get it. So our head coach, Coach Tao, right now, he is the national game champion. He's the head of the men's team. He's also very good as a coach, which allows him to stay here for very long. He's been here for a while. So him as a coach, he is actually a national team because his athletes have done well enough to make it to the national team. So if the athletes have won the competitions or are selected to the national team, they keep their coach. So that coach can go up with them to the national team, or national team coach can take them, because some coaches don't want to go to the national team. Our city is a lush, beautiful, tropical paradise. It's hot, but it's beautiful. They have families, they have lives here. You don't necessarily want to go to Beijing where it's cold, it snows, and the pollution's a little bit stronger. So they might say, I don't want to go to Beijing. So coach you or coach someone, can you take my athlete? Can you coach them on from here? And then they'll go up there. In the province and the national team, a coach will have more than one athlete normally. And I would say typically between around 4 athletes. I think I've seen up to 6, but they'll have their squad, and there'll be a mix. So they'll usually have 1 or 2 like A level, but they're also developing the younger athletes. So like I said, once they went to the provincial level, like those younger athletes are there too. So they're training with the top tier at the same time, which is awesome, because like, you see this amazing lifter and you're right there and you're not there yet. You're like, oh, I'm good. And you're learning from them. So it's usually 4 people, I would say, and usually 1 or 2 top and then some lower. And sometimes they'll have extra athletes come in when they're doing selections. They'll bring in like a few extra, whether it be like summer break. So if they are from a normal school and they're trying it out and they think they'll be good, they might come for a summer training block. That happened this year. There's, I think, 8 extra female athletes and another 10 extra male athletes that came here. They're training for a few months and then they're gone. Unless if they're good enough and already they stuck around. I think maybe 1 or 2 athletes stuck around after that. But the coaching in that squad allows for really good teamwork, that they kind of act like a family. They all kind of stay close in the dormitory. They train together all the time. Sometimes they just walk everywhere together, but I think that's just more that they're friends or not. And then national team, same thing they'll have, but a national team will be a little different. The coach will have top tier to lower tier until they start pairing people away. And then the coach will have like just the top tier, like those who are going to the Olympics or going to Worlds or whatnot. So their team will shrink, but that's where I was talking about before. They might keep some of the other athletes just so they have training partners. So like, stay here, come hang out, come west with us, make sure everyone's happy kind of thing. So unless if you coach you, who is Tian Tao's coach, the Hong Kong's coach, he just, every single person he has is unbelievably amazing. So his team was just stacked all the time. He had no Bs. He did have like a B level athlete, but he was still world level amazing. So it was kind of like, it was strange. It was like, okay, just superstars all over.
But then everyone is equal. So I guess on the day-to-day basis, that might actually work pretty well because they are peers. So probably don't feel what we view from outside.
No, I would say like the only real competitions is, if there is anything, is between province, but it's more so in the organization aspect of things, in the sense that like there's a money aspect behind everything. So if you win at national games, what's cool here is, so say I'm a coach, well, I don't get any bonuses, but a coach who has an athlete win at national games, the athlete will get a cash bonus plus credibility to get higher level jobs after they retire. The coach will get a bonus. The province will get a bonus. Any coach that ever worked with that athlete will get a bonus. So even like that city level, that all the levels below, they all get bonuses, because they want to show like, even at the city level, just because you're at the lower level doesn't mean that you're not helping the system. So they will also get bonuses as well. So there's this, everyone wins when the athlete wins. The specific number of the bonuses, I don't know the details.
How did you end up in the job you have? How did you get there?
Luck mostly. I think it all started with my friend, Dr. Brenna McPhail. She saw a post on Facebook about someone hiring for a national team in China. And there was just this big influx where they wanted to hire a lot of foreign experts to help them with rehab, help them with performance training, help them with technical coaching. Kind of a model of, let's hire the best, let's copy what they do so that we could do it better and then not need them anymore. And I applied for track and field initially, but then through like, oh, we actually have this province job, it sounded more interesting to me because there was less one team, more managing a whole system, a whole program. So then I applied, but the experience I had before, I've volunteered for like 10 years, like with rugby, American football, soccer, with basketball. I was strength and conditioning coach for a while, did first responder work. So I was within sport and had a lot of like experience with different sports. I worked with a team to make Jamaica Bickle at Penn Relays, Slice Canada. So I had like experience with the sports, which was good for the application. So yeah, so if you're ever looking to get a job working at high performance in China, they really want to make sure that you have a legitimate degree, because there's a lot of fake degrees out there. Make sure you have the paper copy of your degree. At no point when I was going through school, I was like, I really need this physical paper. And I came here and like, if you don't show me your physical paper, I don't believe you. I was, Mom, Dad, help me. So you need a physical degree, real, and then you need experience. A lot of the jobs here are like, oh, we want you to have 5 years of experience with Olympic athletes. But like, yeah, outside of China, that's not that easy. But the more experience you have with teams, the more experience you have working in sport, even if it's not paid, it's just like, as long as you're working, like you're doing stuff with sports, that's what they cared a lot about. And that's what I always did. That was my that was my weekends and stuff. I always worked competitions and stuff. So that helped me quite a bit. And then the reason I got chose here was because of the list of certifications and things I had. The leader who ran this place recognized one of the certifications I had. I forget which one she even cared about, but it was just because her English wasn't that great. But she's like, I know that one. And then she's like, if I know it, it's probably good. So like, that was just a pure luck. Like, I happened to know the system that she likes. And then she asked for me out of a list of candidates. So like luck comes in part, but that came from having a lot of different experiences. So yeah, that's why I like to say it's like, it's kind of more luck. Like I didn't envision I want to go to China. It was just, I took advantage of the opportunity when it showed up.
How long have you been there for?
This is my 7th year. It's been a while.
Wow, that's very impressive. All right, so you're a seasoned specialist, and let's talk a little bit about the training, how the weightlifter training looks like day to day or throughout the year.
I would say that if you pick a name out of a hat, some will have a 4-year plan, some will have a 2-year plan, some will have a today plan. This is where the system is not a system here. They each on the national team, for example, definitely they're planning ahead. But a national, like when they put the team together, so like I said, the national team for weightlifting is not really put together. There is a group, but it's usually more juniors or people they're thinking of adding onto the team. But after this national games, they'll likely be built fairly quickly. They'll get the coaches that they want, and then they'll probably put in a plan to LA. Like it'll be this is our competition plan to LA, and they will plan like, okay, the LA is obviously the key. They'll do all the politics of which categories. That's the big thing here. We're all small categories here, so they're like LA. The Americans like bigger sizes, so they might not want our smaller sizes. So it's a concern for some. They'll plan backwards that way. What are the major competitions they're going to need to perform at, and then they'll decide which ones are qualifications, and they'll do all that. So the national team level, they're going to plan out, but they at the provincial level, because a lot of those athletes will still be training at the provincial level, they will probably at least plan out the year, have a good idea of like the year, which competitions are going to matter more, which ones do we want to peak for versus which ones do we just want to show up to. You don't always have to peak for competition. I think that's a misunderstanding. A lot of people go like, I have to peak for every competition, but if you did that, man, your body would break so quickly. Because peaking is like you're priming to get the best out of your body, and that is hard. So sometimes the athletes are like, I'm peaking for Asia champs, and then it will depend on the athlete. So if say an athlete's a junior, they're going to obviously peak for junior competitions, but maybe this junior athlete is transitioning to senior, they're going to peak for maybe like Asia champs or worlds. That'll be their ultimate goal. So I know aim for that, and they won't be aiming necessarily for the Olympics until they can reach that with first goal. But so that's just generally like it fluctuates depending on the athlete, depending on the coach, depending on their level that they're training at. It's going to be very unsystematic in around the country, but each person will have their own plan. And I've never seen them go like, here's a 2-year plan with the graphs and like intensity, volume, stuff like that. I think that is very much specific to the coach, and I think that they prefer to use a system of training. Like this is my weekly system, or like maybe like they have blocks, but they're not like so much like undulating periodization, fancy calculations. It's more, I need to get this, like this is week right now, let's get this one up. Okay, next one. Okay, what's week now? Let's focus on that. It's more adapted to what they're showing up with. At least what I see from the coach here, Coach Deng, who was a national team coach, but before the Tokyo Olympics, but she came back to run the team here. So I see some of her planning, and it seems to be more like week point trainings, like let's get this number up for you, and then they have a general flow of the weekly training and like weekly, monthly training.
How many for weightlifting team you have at your province? How many athletes roughly, and how many coaches? And obviously you are responsible for all the sports. So how the rehab and prehab, how that builds in? Who is responsible for what, and how many people are involved? That's what I'm asking about.
So our program is, I would say there's about 8 to 10 coaches on the men's side, 6 coaches on the female side. Female side, probably 30-ish athletes. Men's side, 40, a little bit more. Actually, not that number might be too high. I'm taking it when there's summer. But basically, on the base, there'd be maybe between 50 and 80 athletes, depending on the season, like if they have more newbies or not. I would say that's kind of standard. I would say some provinces have more, like the Beijing team, I think, has more, but like each area, depending, I guess, how many people are doing well, they might have a bigger number, or just based on budget, if they can afford to have more people. And then the recovery aspect. So I like to break down the Chinese system into, they have the coaching technical staff, they have the recovery team. So they call them doctors here. Not all doctors are all doctors. Sometimes a massage therapist is a doctor. But this recovery team is basically, they'll usually have at least one medical, like real legit medical doctor per team, who is going to be like any like if they need to consider surgery, any injections, medicines, stuff like that. They usually have a doctor on base, several doctors. We have a hospital on base, but there's could be like for your like if you have colds and flus and stuff, there'll be doctors there to help the athletes. There'll be sports scientists who here typically just mean like they analyze your blood. So because they do all their internal testing, make sure the athletes are healthy, that everything's going well, so that they're testing the blood there, and then once they're international athletes, then they follow the WADA and they continue their testing. Then they have so the team doctors on team, they'll probably be weightlifting has 6 on the female side and another 6 on the men's side. And those doctors basically are your, I hurt here. Okay, come and massage it or acu it or do something. And that will be before training or after training or at night. So athletes basically have access to care any day, whenever they need. Those doctors will be at the training hall. So if they are training, then the athlete's like, my shoulder's a little tight. They'll go, they'll rub it. They'll do like their like spot massage, like, okay, go back. So they'll have that treatment throughout the training, which is incredible. They'll also do a lot of stepping massage before training. So the team doctor will get some sticks, stand on you, step on all the areas that are tight that what the athlete wants to relax. And after training, they usually have like a treatment room with AC because it's hot here. So they'll go to another room, have AC on. They'll have 5 to 8 treatment beds, and then athletes just come in, file into the bed that's free. Team doctor massages whether they ask them to massage, or if they have an acupuncturist, the acupuncturist will do it. Sometimes they'll do cupping. It's kind of like dealer's choice for the doctor or for the athlete. If the athlete goes, I want acupuncture, they'll go to the person they like their acupuncture, get acupuncture. If they like cupping, they'll go cupping. So that's all in the team. Does that make sense? So they have the team doctors, sports doctors, they have sports scientists that do the blood work. The sport hospital, so kind of think more centrally now, has rooms for more team doctors. But these ones aren't specific to teams. They're just doctors to do treatments. So this is where like if your team doctor is too busy or your timing just wasn't good, you had to go eat and you missed the treatment time, you'd go to the hospital and then they have a whole bunch of people there to help treat on any other issues. That's where they'll have modalities, so many modalities. If it has a fancy name, it's electric, magnifier, microwave, elective input, blah, like any modality you could think of, they have it. They usually get the athletes to do it themselves, but they will have what they call physiotherapists. A physiotherapist is a modality monitor. So physiotherapy here means just modalities. No, not what we consider physiotherapy in other countries. The physiotherapist is the person who just runs the machines and tells you the right inputs and stuff. Then centrally here, we have our performance center, which is our strength and conditioning coaches, which in China they call performance coaches. And then we have our rehab specialist team, which is the team I run. And we both work in a separate building and we're centralized, but we'll also send 2 or 3 specialists per team to go to the training hall and do their, like, help them with their warm-ups if they need it, or if they're hurt, give them rehab after their training, or if they can't train, then they'll come here and do rehab here so that they can train, and then they'll go over there. Kind of all over the place. And then the performance side, even weightlifting, which is, it took us a while to figure out how to make it work, but the weightlifters will see strength and conditioning coaches as well. And so even though weightlifting is strength and conditioning, like almost in complete nature, like weightlifting has good accessories, it has good mobility, it has everything, but the athletes will still go to the strength and conditioning team. And that's where we do a lot of our testing. So our strength and conditioning team do a lot of our objective measures, like how's your power output, how's your strength output. And then based off of that, they are spot tweaking the programming, not the weightlifting program, but they'll add 1 or 2 sessions a week to just work on areas that the performance coaches think need help, or if they've been hurt but they're not injured anymore, they might just do extra work to make sure that they're not getting hurt again. So if I were to summarize that, basically we have our performance support team, which is strength and conditioning geared to improving your objective, like your testing data. We have a rehab to help with extra treatment, but managing injuries and restoring like your ability to train. And then we have our recovery team, which is just our general maintaining of their healthy tissues, of their nutrition, of their health and stuff. So those are like the 2 big categories they have, and they have access to it all the time. The only limitation would be I can only treat a certain amount of people a day, same with our staff. So it's there'll be a prioritization on if an athlete is going to win at a competition, they're going to get first come, first serve. So there is a little bit of a politics that the better you are, the more
access you have.
yeah, fast pass. You get a fast pass if you win. And if you're going to win, you get a fast pass. And it's just literally a logistics thing. So because they have so many athletes, there's only so much staff they can afford. But what I would say is like the evolution here, like where I first started off, I worked out of 2 medical examination rooms. Like if you picture going into a small closet room with a little bed on the side and a little desk, we had 2 of those rooms as our rehab facility when I first came here. And then because we were doing successful, then they're like, hey, we'll build you another room, which is a room that can fit like maybe 4 beds. And then they're like, you know what, you're doing well enough. Okay, we need more people. Let's hire. Well, they hired 30 people, which was crazy. And it's like, okay, let's get another place. Here's 20 beds. And now we're in those. We have 30 beds, but we also have an entire training facility too with it. So they will adapt based on needs. So they notice that they need more, so they may give you more, I think. So I guess that's how it keeps evolving here.
How much of the life of a professional athlete in China, in weightlifting specifically, is designed and prepared for them by the team, broadly speaking, and how much they have influence on what is happening day to day with their bodies and their training?
Well, it's all scheduled here. Like it's very much every day. You're part of the team. Like the team, this is your full-time job. Meal times are a certain time. Everyone goes to training same time. So here we typically follow like Monday to Saturday training schedule. Monday morning, well, this will depend on the block that they're on, but basically Monday, Saturday they're training. They always train at the same time. Usually in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon if they have to change things up. But Wednesdays and Fridays they get off. Sundays they get off. Wednesday and Friday afternoons are off. The mornings they still train. Sundays they get the whole day off, but they're expected to be on base. The food is kind of controlled. So they eat at the canteen depending on if they're going to like certain competitions. So if say, for example, we have an athlete that's going to go to Worlds, who went to Worlds. She would now no longer be allowed to order food to get it delivered. She wouldn't be able to order bubble teas and like foods on the street because they want to make sure there's no contamination from outside. Could also be for weight management. And sometimes the higher level athletes might even have like a menu designed for them. And they have the options, like if they're hurting or they're not feeling good, like they talk to the coach, like you'll see them negotiate like what they should do and stuff. But pretty much it's the entire day's planned for them. Like it's the same thing every time.
And in terms of the training, all exercises, sets, reps, loading, everything is prescribed ahead of time, or the coach decides, will we watch the athlete, or the athlete chooses the exercise, how that works?
So typically they'll follow like a schedule of, so I'll give you, for example, Zhao Jinghong is nice enough to give me like what her current schedule is now. So she said basically currently they're doing a 2-week heavy, 1 week light rotation. So they go 2 weeks heavy, 1 week light, 2 weeks heavy, 1 week light. And then soon they'll switch over to a peak for the national game. But Monday is snatch from knee, clean panda pull, and wide grip deadlift. So those are the exercises that have been selected for her on Monday. The weight she goes to, if it's a heavy, she's going heavy. So she's going to try to go as heavy as she can. It's kind of more by feel. So if they feel good, they're going to go heavier. If they feel like they could get another rep out of there, they're going to get another rep. So it's not so much like we're going for 3 rep max. It's go heavy. If I got a weight and I'm like, I can do 2 more reps of that, it's like, and then you're like, this is heavy enough. I'm going to try to get as many reps as I can at that heaviness. If they're like, I can go heavier, they're not going to waste their energy giving more reps. They're just going to do like that 1 rep or 2 reps, and then they're going to keep going heavier until they get to the heaviest they can. So they get to choose based on how they feel. And all the athletes say is like, I treat like, how do I feel? That's what I'm going to do. So if they can't do an exercise, then the coach comes in and like, okay, let's like our focus is to snatch. So like if it's not snatch from me, like maybe let's put some blocks on there. Let's do some blocks snatches. Like, so they'll modify it based on how the athlete's feeling rather than give lots of different variation of exercises planned out. So it's athlete chooses based on how they're feeling that day. So I guess that variable is very strong. And then coach kind of says like, we need to go heavy or we're going lighter. But then the coach is helping monitor and coach their technique so that they're doing well. And that's kind of like what I see how they're doing the training. If you want to see kind of the full week, like Monday is like a snatch day, clean panda pull, wide deadlift or snatch grip deadlift. Tuesday is the jerk from rack, front squat, jerk dips. Wednesday, like high snatch or power snatch or high clean. I think it depends. Like, I think that Wednesday is kind of variable depending on what the weak point is. Thursday, you're typically doing back squat. I think it's typically like a high back squat, like not high bar, like a quarter squat or a half squat. They're not doing acid grass on that one. They're doing more of a higher one so they can add extra weight. And then they do really heavy like jerk holds just to build up their, I think it's kind of more of a being able to handle heavy weight day. A Friday then becomes snatch. And usually they do like a narrow grip deadlift, which would be a deadlift for the rest of the world. But then Saturday, yeah, clean deadlift, narrow grip. And then Saturday, clean and jerks and back squats. So that would be an example of a week, but that is from one coach. Typically, each coach is following a general standard, but the specific exercise might change. Like Lee Real was doing, I guess, like in the Western world, they would just call them Jefferson curls, like straight leg deficit deadlifts, but like going all the way a full rounded all the way up. So they had that on. That was on Monday. That each athlete or each coach might have different prescriptions, and that would be based on the athlete coach what they think is needed. So perhaps it was related to a weakness they think she had or whatnot. So very variable, but they always have like, this is the standard framework.
That's awesome. Thank you. Now, what happens when the athlete is injured? Do they go back to the city? Do they stay and rehab there? Who is responsible for the rehab plan and how does it go?
So rehab here is basically done in a few ways. First is, ow, I hurt. Team doctor tries to treat it away. If it's managed by treatment, stops there. Just keep training, manage it by treatment. Keep training until it goes away. When I first came here, I was very appalled by how it kind of looked, but now I truly understand, like, keep training is huge here. The coach will modify, like, so we kind of have a rule. It's like, if it's more painful when you go heavier and you start seeing that form get really ugly and stuff, you're gonna go down to the level, like they usually say like 70%. So go lighter, go 70%. Find the range where it's not hurting anymore, where you have good form, and they'll do like a few weeks of hypertrophy at that level. Like, let's do lots of reps, high volume, 6 to 10 sets of 6 to 10 reps, like, or high reps depending on the athlete. A lot of athletes don't like high reps, so they'll never go to 10 reps, but they'll spend time there and then, okay, let's go back up, and energy prevents back up. So a lot of the rehab is actually done just through the training. We'll do similar kind of variations. If it's more of a fatigue thing, like if they're like feeling gassed and they're tired, they'll use more cluster sets. They'll use longer rest intervals, or they'll just reduce the total volume so that they're not as gassed. And then if it's like a range of motion, they start, okay, let's do block pulls instead of from the floor. They'll do those tweaks in the training. So that's where a majority of the true rehab is happening. And then our team basically goes in and it's like, we assess it and then we triage the injury. It's like, you're not going to do that if you had a full rupture of a muscle. So a full rupture of a muscle, they're going to stop the training of that muscle, and the rehab is going to do the treatments, progressive overload of treatment, training of that tissue itself, build up the tolerance of the tissue to handle training. Once they can handle training, the performance team that I was talking about, performance coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, they're going to then reintroduce some training at heavier levels, make sure that they are meeting the objective measure standards that they had before. Like, are they back at baseline? If they're back at baseline, then they're okay, this tissue is tolerating the training well, like weightlifting is fully cleared. If they're like, this tissue is still not doing well, it won't be that they stop weightlifting. It'll just be more that we'll add extra exercises in weightlifting. So it'd be like, your hamstrings still hurt, but you can still do your weightlifting lifts. But to avoid you compensating, let's add 2 or 3 sets to that hamstring, to like RDLs or hamstring curls, something to work on that hamstring so that it builds up as you continue your training. And then the strength coaches will kind of tell us like, all right, they're good. Like they've normalized, or we still have a problem, let's modify something else. And that's basically like a lot of our rehab is, there's so much treatment here already anyways. So the rehab is about intelligently programming around the injury so that they can keep loading as much as they can, keep the training high. Because if an athlete takes a break here, they're done. There's so much training. If you took like a month off training, you'd be so far behind everyone else. Like you feel, and they've been training so long, they don't even know what DOMs are. Kind of like when they have an injured area and I load it really well, I'm like, oh, so sore. I was like, yeah, that's what normal people feel like when we train. I was like we get these these things called muscle soreness, and it's really uncomfortable. And they're like, I've never had this before. It's like, you did when you first started training, you had this, but you've been training so long, you don't know. But yeah, so we kind of follow like a training load monitoring, but less like specific on like how much load stuff. It's more keep your training as much as possible. If we keep your training high and we add things, get your injury back up, the risk of re-injury is extremely low. But if we take you out, your chronic volume of training drops so much that you just trying to go back to your normal training is a stressor on your body. And then we look at like the cascade of, you got hurt, take some break off, you try to go back, you get hurt again, you go back, you go there. And then you just end up going down there. In regards of what team you'll be on, it depends on the competitive level. So if you're a national team before Olympics, you get hurt, you can't compete at the Olympics, you're usually going to be replaced. If you're at the provincial level, they care more about if you're performing. So if you're performing and you have the potential, you're staying on the team, you get all the resources to get better. But if you miss like a year of competitions, it's costing the government to have you there. So they're probably like, you got, like, let's go back. The only time people really get kicked off the team is not about injury. It's about if they can't perform. So if someone looks like they're promising, they join province, but they just never win, they can't get any higher, they're not performing well enough, the coach is like, this athlete's peak, they're not getting better. That's when they would get to be sent back to a sports school or just back to regular school. But it's not like you're fired. It's a little bit more like, let's try. Like, they try really hard. And I've never seen an athlete here leave because of that. They're usually always trying to build up the potential. It's not cutthroat, like evil looking. It's pretty family oriented. Like, come on, buddy, let's go.
Fascinating. What do you really like about Chinese system, and what other countries could pay attention to and possibly consider adopting, you think?
I think what I like about the system here is that they have a system, but they're more loose with the rules. I think that it's really good for us to have a system, but we need to learn to adapt to specifics, to the specific situations. And they're not so serious about it here. Like, yeah, I think a lot of people think like the Chinese system is super serious and really intense, but people are pretty chill. Like, they're laughing quite a bit. They're hanging out. It's because they look at it as kind of like a job. They don't go like, oh, it's do or die. It's not like the epic videos they make of like, they're gonna make it. Like, they're kind of like, yeah, I went to work. Chill out, bro. It's not that intense. Like, staying more relaxed about this, I think, helps them a lot because it just helps them make smarter decisions at times. And I think that would help a lot of athletes. Like, I think a lot of, especially in development, like if we go into that whole, like, the parents want the kids to do super well in something, and there's this pressure of doing well right off the bat. Like, that's just not here. It's like, just go to your job, do your job well. If you get promoted, great. Let's don't, not having this incredible pressure of winning from the beginning. And yeah, I don't get that sense here at all. Like, some of our athletes who went to World who didn't do so well, they came back and it's like nothing happened. Like, we're all chill, we're all hanging out again. So I think that is something to learn in sports, that like, yeah. And so like in sport in general, like the athletes, like, it's just a sport. Obviously lives and your livelihood is all related to it. But like, and if you talk about like chiros, physios and stuff like that, like sometimes I see how intensely they argue about topics, and I'm like, dude, no one's dying. I was like, well, unless if it really is messing up your job, but like, I'm just trying to make someone lift more or move faster or have less pain. But I'm not a heart surgeon. Like, we can relax a little bit. Like, let the people who do life and death situations have this amount of stress. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stress in this sport, and it's unnecessary.
So interesting. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. 2 short questions to finish. The first one is, what is your favorite exercise?
What I like to say here is, whatever exercise you're willing to do is my favorite exercise. If I think part of my job is to be creative and adaptive to what the athlete wants to do and what it works for that athlete. And I will, like, even if it doesn't even make sense in my head, if the athlete's going to do it and it gets the effect that I want, then I'm happy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And the last question is, where people can find you if they want to follow what you're doing or get in touch. Where should they go? Online.
Right now, the main one would be my Instagram, Dr. Steph Performance. It's I am currently like building some workshops based on some demand that I've had, and I'll have some YouTube videos and stuff up for people to see. But Instagram's the easiest.
Thank you so much, Steph. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Alex.